Cannery Row, Chapter 16. Probably the busiest time the girls of the Bear Flag ever had was the march of the big sardine catch. It wasn't only that the fish ran in silvery billions and money ran almost as freely. A new regiment moved into the Presidio, and a new bunch of soldiers always shop around a good deal before they settle down. Dora was shorthanded just at that time, too, for Ava Flanagan had gone to East St. Louis on a vacation. Phyllis May had broken her leg getting out of the roller coaster in Santa Cruz, and Elsie Double Bottom had made a novena and wasn't much good for anything else. The men from the sardine fleet, loaded with dough, were in and out all afternoon. They sail at dark and fish all night, so they must play in the afternoon. In the evening, the soldiers of the new regiment came down and stood around playing the jukebox and drinking Coca-Cola and sizing up the girls for the time when they would be paid. Dora was having trouble with her income tax, for she was entangled in that curious enigma which said the business was illegal and then taxed her for it. In addition to everything else, there were the regulars, the steady customers who had been coming down for years, the laborers from the gravel pits, the riders from the ranches, the railroad men who came in the front door, and the city officials and prominent businessmen who came in the rear entrance back by the tracks and who had a little chintz sitting rooms assigned to them. All in all, it was a terrific month, and right in the middle of it, the influenza epidemic had to break out. It came to the whole town. Mrs. Talbot and her daughter of the San Carlos Hotel had it. Tom Work had it. Benjamin Peabody and his wife had it. Excelligensima Mark Antonia Field had it. The whole Gross family came down with it. The doctors of Monterey, and there were enough of them to take care of the ordinary diseases, accidents, and neuroses, were running crazy. They had more business than they could do among clients who, if they didn't pay their bills, at least had the money to pay them. Cannery Row, which produces a tougher breed than the rest of the town, was late in contracting it, but finally it got them too. The schools were closed. There wasn't a house that hadn't feverish children and sick parents. It was not a deadly disease as it was in 1917, but with children it had a tendency to go into the mastoids. The medical profession was very busy, and besides, Cannery Row was not considered a very good financial risk. Now, Doc of the Western Biological Laboratory had no right to practice medicine. It was not his fault that everyone in the row came to him for medical advice. Before he knew it, he found himself running from shanty to shanty, taking temperatures, giving physics, borrowing and delivering blankets, and even taking food from house to house where mothers looked at him with inflamed eyes from their beds and thanked him and put the full responsibility for their children's recovery on him. When a case got really out of hand, he phoned a local doctor, and sometimes one came if it seemed to be an emergency. But to the families, it was all emergency. Doc didn't get much sleep. He lived on beer and canned sardines. In Lee Chong's, where he went to get beer, he met Dora, who was there to buy a pair of nail clippers. "You look done in," Dora said. "I am," Doc admitted. "I haven't had any sleep for about a week." "I know," said Dora. "I hear it's bad. Comes at a bad time, too." "Well, we haven't lost anybody yet," said Doc, "but there are some awful sick kids. The Ransel kids have all developed mastoiditis." "Is there anything I can do?" Dora asked. Doc said, "You know, there is. People get so scared and helpless. Take the Ransels. They're scared to death, and they're scared to be alone. If you or some of the girls could just sit with them." Dora, who was soft as a mouse's belly, could be as hard as a carborundum. She went back to the Bear Flag and organized it for service. It was a bad time for her, but she did it. The Greek cook made a 10-gallon cauldron of strong soup and kept it full and kept it strong. The girls tried to keep up their business, but they went in shifts to sit with the families, and they carried pots of soup when they went. Doc was in almost constant demand. Dora consulted him and detailed the girls where he suggested. And all the time the business at the Bear Flag was booming. The jukebox never stopped playing, the men of the fishing fleet and the soldiers stood in line, and the girls did their work, and then they took their pots of soup and went to sit with the Ramsels, with the McCarthys, with the Farias. The girls slipped out the back door, and sometimes staying with the sleeping children, the girls dropped to sleep in their chairs. They didn't use makeup for work anymore. They didn't have to. Dora herself said she could have used the total membership of the old ladies' home. It was the busiest time the girls at the Bear Flag could remember. Everyone was glad when it was over.